Answer me this. Why would you willingly hand someone the power to destroy you? Think about it. Every time you fall in love, you're essentially giving another person a loaded weapon aimed directly at your heart. They can shatter you with a word, obliterate you with silence, turn your entire world upside down by simply leaving. And yet, you do it anyway. We all do, again and again. So here's the question that philosophers, scientists, and poets have been screaming into the void for millennia. Why the hell do we love? And I'm not talking about the Hallmark card version. I'm talking about the real, raw, terrifying, transcendent experience that makes you feel more alive and more vulnerable than anything else in existence. Buckle up. Because the answer is way stranger and way more beautiful than you think. Here's what nobody tells you about love. It's the ultimate paradox, the beautiful trap, the necessary wound. You want freedom? Love threatens it. You want safety? Love destroys it. You want to stay rational, in control, master of your own destiny? Love laughs in your face and says, not anymore, you don't. And the craziest part? We don't just tolerate this. We crave it. We write songs about it. We build our lives around it. We make it the entire point of being human. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said something wild in Works of Love. He argued that love is a duty, not a feeling, but a moral command. Not because it makes us happy, but because it makes us real. The villain in this story isn't heartbreak. It's the lie that love is optional, that you can live a full life without it, that protection is better than connection, and you're safer alone. But here's what that lie doesn't tell you. Every wall you build to keep pain out also keeps meaning out. Every time you choose safety over vulnerability, you're choosing a slower, quieter kind of death. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. The thing nobody wants to admit at a candlelit dinner. From an evolutionary standpoint, love is a con job. A biological hijacking designed to make you do things that benefit the survival of your genes, not necessarily your happiness. When you fall in love, your brain becomes a pharmacy. Dopamine floods your system, the same chemical that fires when you do cocaine. Oxytocin surge during physical touch, bonding you like superglue. Serotonin drops, which is why you can't eat, can't sleep, can't think about anything except them. Neuroscientist Helen Fisher spent decades studying this phenomenon. In her groundbreaking book, Why We Love, The Nature and Chemistry of Romantic Love, she put people in MRI machines while they looked at photos of their beloved. And you know what lit up? The ventral tegmental area, the brain's reward center, the same region that activates with drug addiction. That obsession you feel, that's not destiny. That's dopamine. That inability to focus on work, food, friends, that's your ancient mammalian brain telling you this person will help propagate your DNA. Do not let them escape. Attachment theory, developed by psychiatrist John Bowlby and psychologist Mary Ainsworth, goes even deeper. Our earliest bonds with caregivers literally wire our brains for future relationships. If you had secure attachment, you learned trust. If you had anxious or avoidant attachment, you learned fear. And those patterns, they echo through every relationship you'll ever have. Biologically, love exists to keep you bonded long enough to raise helpless human offspring who take years to become independent. It's a survival mechanism wrapped in poetry and set to violins. But here's where the science gets weird. Where it breaks its own rules and starts sounding like philosophy. If love is just chemistry, just evolutionary programming, just your genes manipulating you into reproducing, why does a 70-year-old couple still hold hands? Why do people die of broken hearts? Why do we write symphonies and build monuments and wage wars over something that's supposedly just neurons firing? Think about the movie Arrival. linguist Louise Banks learns an alien language that rewires her brain to perceive time non-linearly. She sees her entire future, falling in love with Ian, having a daughter, watching that daughter die young from an incurable disease. She sees all the pain, all the loss, all the devastation waiting at the end. And she chooses it anyway. Knowing the cost, she chooses love. She chooses the relationship. She chooses the daughter she'll lose. Biology can explain the mechanism, the chemicals, the neural pathways, the evolutionary advantages. But it can't explain why knowing the price doesn't stop us from paying it. It can't explain why we'd choose heartbreak over emptiness, why we'd rather be destroyed by love than protected from it. There's something happening here that transcends survival. Something the brain scans can't capture. Something that looks an awful lot like meaning. If you're still with me, subscribe, because we're about to leave biology behind and enter the realm of the soul. Now we time travel. Ancient Greece, 385 BCE. A bunch of drunk philosophers are lying on couches at a symposium, basically an intellectual dinner party, arguing about the nature of love. And one of them, Aristophanes, tells the wildest origin story you've ever heard. He says humans used to be different. We were these spherical creatures with 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 faces. Complete, whole, self-sufficient, so powerful, so content that the gods felt threatened. So Zeus, being Zeus, decided to nerf humanity. He split us in half, condemned us to wander the earth as incomplete beings, forever searching for our other half. And that's what love is, according to Aristophanes. Recognition. That moment when you meet someone and feel like you've known them forever. When pieces of yourself you didn't know were missing suddenly click into place. When you stop feeling like a fragment and start feeling like a whole person. It's mythology, sure, but the psychological truth inside it is devastating. We love because we're incomplete, because we're lonely in ways we can't even articulate. Because seeing yourself reflected in another person makes you feel less like a cosmic accident and more like you belong here. But Plato, through his teacher Socrates, takes this even further. He introduces the concept of eros love as a ladder. You start at the bottom rung, physical attraction. You see a beautiful body and you want it. That's primal. That's biological. That's step 1. But then you climb. You fall in love with their mind, their personality, their soul. That's step 2. Then you realize you're not in love with this person specifically, you're in love with beauty itself. With the quality they embody. And that leads you to step 3, loving all beautiful souls. And then, and this is where Plato gets mystical. You transcend even that. You fall in love with beauty as an abstract form. With truth, with the good, with the divine essence that underlies all of reality. In Plato's view, romantic love isn't the destination. It's the vehicle. The person you fall in love with is teaching you how to love the universe itself. They're your training wheels for transcendence. The movie Before Sunrise captures the early rungs of this ladder perfectly. Jesse and Celine are strangers on a train. They have one night in Vienna, no sex, no grand gestures, just walking, talking, connecting. And by dawn, they're both changed. Not because they found their soulmate, but because they experienced recognition that I see you and you see me moment that makes existence feel less random. Plato would say that night was spiritual practice. That through loving Celine, Jesse glimpsed something eternal. And that glimpse stays with you forever, even if the person doesn't. Love, in this ancient view, is divine madness. A kind of possession. The gods reaching down and using your heart as a telephone line to remind you, you're not just flesh, you're capable of touching the infinite. Drop your experience in the comments if someone ever made you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. But Plato's most famous student looked at all this mystical talk and said, "Yeah, no, you're overthinking it." Aristotle was a pragmatist. He wanted to know how to live here, on Earth, in the messy reality of human relationships. And his answer, laid out in Nicomachean Ethics, is shockingly simple and profoundly radical. You cannot live a good life alone. Not because you're weak, not because you're incomplete, but because virtue, courage, generosity, wisdom, all the things that make life meaningful, can only be practiced in relationship with others. Aristotle distinguished 3 types of love: eromantic, passionate, physical love; storge, the affection between family members; and philia, deep, virtuous friendship. And of the 3, he argued that philia is the foundation of the good life. Not passion, not romance, friendship. Why? Because true friendship, according to Aristotle, is based on mutual virtue. You don't love your friend because they're useful to you. You don't love them because they make you feel good. You love them because they're good, because they're wise, courageous, just. And in loving them, you become better yourself. Aristotle says something beautiful. A friend is another self. Through friendship, you see yourself more clearly. You're challenged to grow. You practice being the kind of person worth loving. Modern psychology backs this up completely. Barbara Fredrickson's research, detailed in Love 2, Finding Happiness and Health in Moments of Connection, shows that love isn't a constant state. It's micro moments of positive connection. A shared laugh, a moment of empathy, eye contact that says, "I see you." And these moments, they literally change your biology. They lower cortisol, strengthen your immune system, increase your resilience to stress. Love isn't just emotional, it's physiological. It's how humans are meant to exist. The movie The Shawshank Redemption isn't a love story in the traditional sense. But the friendship between Andy Dufresne and Ellis Redredding, that's philia in its purest form. They don't complete each other. They don't fix each other. They make each other better. They give each other hope. They practice courage together. And when Andy escapes, he doesn't abandon Red. He leaves him a path to freedom. Because real love is wanting the other person to flourish, even when you're not there to see it. Aristotle's insight is this: love isn't a distraction from living well. Love is how you live well. It's not something you do after you've achieved success or found yourself or become worthy. It's the entire point. The vehicle through which you become who you're meant to be. We love because we're social creatures who need each other to become fully human. We love because isolation breeds stagnation. We love because we're better together. Now let's talk about the most terrifying, most radical form of love ever conceived. Agape, unconditional, selfless, divine love. This is the love at the center of Christian theology, but it transcends religion. Agape is loving someone not because they deserve it, not because they earned it, not because they love you back, but simply because they exist. C.S. Lewis breaks this down brilliantly in The Four Loves. He shows how Eros needs attraction, Philia needs compatibility, Storge needs kinship. But Agape needs nothing. It's love that gives without expecting return, love that serves without seeking credit, love that forgives the unforgivable. It's the love of a parent who stays up all night with a colicky baby, the love of someone who cares for a spouse with dementia who no longer recognizes them, the love that shows up when there's nothing left to gain and everything to lose. French philosopher Simone Weil called this decreation in her book, gravity and grace. Not destruction, but the voluntary stripping away of ego. You stop asking, what do I get? And start asking, how can I serve? You let go of control, of self-protection, of the fortress you've built around your heart. And here's the paradox that breaks people's brains. In losing yourself, you find yourself. Think about Schindler's List. Oskar Schindler starts as a war profiteer, a member of the Nazi Party, a selfish opportunist exploiting Jewish labor. But as he witnesses the Holocaust, something cracks open in him. He starts using his fortune, his influence, his safety to save lives. He risks everything, and by the end, he saved 1,200 Jews from extermination. In the final scene, holding a gold Nazi pin, he breaks down. This pin, 2 people. This is gold. 2 more people. I could have got more. He's weeping not because he lost everything, but because he wishes he'd lost more. That's agape. Love that transforms you by making you less selfish. Love that costs you everything and somehow makes you richer. Love that proves you're not a monster by turning you into something resembling a saint. The psychotherapist Erich Fromm explores this in The Art of Loving. He argues that modern culture has it backwards. We think love is about receiving, finding someone who makes us happy, who fulfills our needs, who completes us. But real love, mature love, is about giving, about caring for another person's growth as much as your own. And when you give like that, without keeping score, without demanding reciprocity, without protecting yourself, you become more fully alive, more fully you. We love selflessly, not because we're martyrs, but because that kind of love is the only kind that doesn't eventually devour itself. It's the only kind that lasts. The only kind that transforms suffering into meaning. Subscribing takes 2 seconds and ensures this reaches someone who needs to remember what real love looks like. Don't scroll past. So we've covered the biology, how your brain hijacks you. We've explored the ancient philosophers, how love lifts you toward the divine or builds your character. But here's what none of them have fully prepared you for. Here's the truth that every philosophy, every religion, every love song tries to warn you about, but you never really understand until it's too late. Love will destroy you. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Actually destroy you. And you'll let it. Again and again and again. Because there's something the existentialists understood that nobody wants to talk about. Something about freedom and terror and the unbearable weight of choosing to be vulnerable in a universe that offers no guarantees. Part 2 is where we go into the darkness. Where we talk about why love is simultaneously the most liberating and most imprisoning thing you'll ever experience. Where we explore the philosophers who said love is a battlefield and meant it literally. Where we face the question nobody wants to answer. If love causes so much pain, why do we keep coming back for more? The answer is darker, stranger, and more beautiful than anything we've covered so far. And it changes everything. See you in part 2. Drop part 2 in the comments if you're ready for the truth. And hit subscribe so you don't miss it.